Hello guys, this is Joseph from Jouleconcepts. How are we doing today? Alright, so in this series, it's just a three-part series. We're going to be looking at the basis for animation in Blender, and where I'm going to be talking about how you will learn the basis of animation, talking about the basic keyframing animation, and that will be in the first part of the video. And the second part of the video, we're going to be looking at keyframe interpolation so that we'll know how we can manipulate our animation keyframes with the graph editor. And then after that, in the second tutorial, and then in the last tutorial, we're going to be looking at how we are going to apply all of those things and use it to create an animation for our table lamp, which you can see on my screen. So it's going to be a long three tutorials, and but then very something you're going to learn a lot from. So I just hope you just open your mind to learn from these. So without further ado, I want you to meet me in the first tutorial.
Right, so I'm going to start with the general file. I'll delete all of this. I don't need this. I'll just work with the cube object. So what I'm going to do is, there's nothing really. So I'll just move the mesh of this cube so that the origin will be down. So I'll hit tab, A to select all, G to move, and then Z to constrain it vertically up, and hold down Control so that I can snap. And that will do that. If I hit tab and I'm back here, so now if I have my move, have my origin at the base. All right, so that's that. So another thing, this is actually, you can just skip this stage because if you really do not need this, I just want to have my cube having the detail showing so it doesn't look too flat. All right, so while I'm here, as I'm animating, I'll be seeing everything. Just know that. So for your animation, the first thing to note, sorry, is you need to first of come to your output section and then set your frame rate. So frame rate is more like how many picture frames of animation you're going to be having in a second. All right, so that's what the FPS means, frames per second. So frames is more like if you go to the traditional animation where you have the Disney animation, you have artists drawing pictures of their characters at every frames and then now flip the papers or we start to see the motion going between each frame. So basically what you might likely call the frames will be like papers, all right? So papers that you are drawing on. So that's the kind of analogy I think I can just give to you to explain what frames is. So the FPS, the 24 frames, now telling you how many of these papers you're going to have in 1 second. So let's just say, for instance, let me just quickly use this to illustrate so that it would help to better understand what I'm trying to say here. So let's say, for instance, you have an intention to have an object. So this is a ground level. You want to move an object from this location to this location. All right. So we already have two informations, all right? We already have the start location and then we have the stop location, right? So those are the two informations we have at our own disposal, right? So if I'm to use the FPS, don't forget now we're talking about FPS, all right? If I say, for instance, I want to use 3 FPS in 1 second, what that means is that for the movement of an object from the movement of for the movement of this ball to move from this place to this place in 1 second using 3 FPS, meaning I'm going to be having 3 pictures of 3 papers of this animation. So You already have the starting animation here, the starting position and then the end position. Then we have another frame, which makes it 1, 2, 3. All right. So that's what the FPS mean basically is talking about when you have um, an object moving from one place to another, or just changing, modifying an object from one time to another time. So those time. So in this case, we are using second. So in 1 second, if I'm to change the object, I'm using 3 FPS. That means I'm just going to be having like three different images that will show the movement. All right. I don't know if that explains what I'm trying to say. So now, as much as you have said this, now imagine we have 10 FPS. And so what that would mean, sorry about my sketch, is that, so let's still go back to, we already know the start position. So we're going to put the start position and also the end position, which we have it. Now the remaining 8 pictures will now be shared. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. So all makes it 10. So if you tell me now, between these two, this is the 3 and this is the 10. So what will happen now if, so what's the significance of this FPS? Why am I trying to explain this is that for an FPS that is low, you only have limited freedom to work. All right. You only have limited freedom to work. So when you are drawing, you only have 3 pages to draw. This is paper one, paper two, and paper three. And so by the time you are flipping the animation between these 3 papers, it will not be as smooth as when you flip between 10 papers. All right. So that's why I'm saying that that was what I was trying to say in earlier on, that I would liken the frames as to the papers which artists used back then. So what I'm saying is, so the more FPS you have, the more smooth your animation gets to be. All right. So that's just how I feel I can explain the FPS for you. So, if you're running your animation, you want to choose the animation, the FPS that you want here. So, 24 FPS is the standard used in the film industry. So, and in some broadcast industry, in some broadcasts, you can use 30 FPS, and in some movies can go from 60 to like 200 FPS. So that's why you see in some stylized movie like The Matrix, and they made use of a very high frame rate. And why is that? Is because you have enough image to work with, so you can slow down your animation or even ramp it up because you have enough pictures to work with. That's why you notice that once they did the slow mo for that matrix, the movement of the hand and everything still looks really smooth. So, do you understand? It's because they made use of a lot of picture frames. All right. So, but in the case of that's just like an overview. If I'm to try explaining all of this, it's going to take a lot of time. So let's just get to animation in Blender. So the first thing you're going to do, like I said, you go to your output, then you change it to the appropriate and FPS that you want. So I'm going to change this to like 30 FPS. So it means I'm going to be having 30 frames in 1 second. If you come back here, it means I'm going to be having 30 pa- papers in 1 second, so 30 pictures in 1 second. All right. So the next thing is your start frame and then your end frame. And each scene we start frame is at 1 and then end frame is at 250. All right. So if, for instance, if I want to have a number of like 3 seconds in my animation. So what I'm going to do is going to be 30 times 3, right? Which will give me 90 frames. So this is how you set that, making use of your FPS, right? So this is where you set your duration of the time. And also another place to note all of this is if you come down here, you see your timeline, which is here. So the default was 250, and you can see we changed it. And because we changed it to 90, you also see the end also changed to 90 here. I can also change this back to the 250 and also change it. So you can either change from here or you can change from here. All right. So we have that. This is the start. It tells you the start of the animation. And then the next thing to see here is your current frame. Right now, my mouse, wherever my trackbar falls on, that is where I'm going to be having the number here. So if I want this to go back to frame one, just type one and press enter. You can see the blue trackbar moves to that frame one. And you have your animation controls here. So this takes you to the last frame, to the beginning frame, jumps to the beginning frame. This allows you to, and also allows you to play backwards, and also allows you to pause. Now, these two will take you forward and backward in time of the keyframe that you've added. But now, if I click, nothing happens because you don't have any keyframe yet. So it's not going to work until I have a keyframe. And then the last one here is the auto keyframe, which we're going to get to in a moment by the time we get into keyframing proper. Then you have some other things here which you are going to be learning as time goes by. Then if you come to your keying, and here you also have some other keying type. You have a jitter, extreme, moving hold, breakdown, keyframes, and all. So the default is the keyframe. So, and because we are going to be doing a keyframe animation, so we are leaving this as that keyframe animation. Then your playback. And so these are the things you want to set. So for the sync, you can decide to say you want to play every frame or you want to do frame dropping and then sync audio. So what's the difference between these two? Play every frame means it's going to be playing every frame from one, two, three, four, all the way here. But in some cases, when if you're trying to play every frame for like some simulation, your animation doesn't really play smoothly. So what we do is we change this to frame dropping. So what will happen for the frame dropping is just that it's going to drop some frames that are going to lag, make the animation lag, just go to the next. So that it can catch up with the actual FPS that with which you want to play your animation. All right, so that is what that does. And here, like you have for every other place, you can change back to any other thing. Right now, this is timeline. If I click here, you can see this is timeline. I can go to 3D window and you can see that I'm now in the 3D window. So I'll just take this back to the timeline which you're going to use to play animation. So if you notice, I'm dragging this up, and you see this gray part and this dark part of this place where you have this lighter part is your animation time. All right, so this is the time frame that you have. Remember, we've already set this to 90. If I increase this, it's going to also increase, and if I reduce, it reduces. All right, so that means my playback time will be between this place and this place. Once it gets there, back to zero and continue. So it will not exceed 90. All right, take this back to the beginning. So this is everything there is to the interface right here. So here, this stopwatch, if you click on the stopwatch, you just highlight all of these. Basically, I really do not use this uh, just to preview this place right here. So once you have that done, the next thing you also want to note is that because don't forget we're going to be using keyframe. All right. So another place to find your animation is in your preference. So if I go to edit and go to my preferences, and then you go to the animation tab here, you have a whole lot of things here that you can set for your animation preferences. You see under your timeline, your keyframe, and your F curve. And these are the things you can decide to set. You can show, turn off some things. You can do a whole lot of things right here. So which we are going to look at. But if you look at the F curve, which we are going to get into in a moment, um, we'll come back here. Just note that the default interpolation here is the Bezier, which is curve. So once you understand all of this, the next thing to note is how do I now record? How do I start my animation to record my animation? All right. So the first thing, there are a couple of ways to do that. couple of ways, but I'm showing you two ways. And one of that way is to come to the data section, sorry, the object section here. So we have to select your object you want to animate. So that's actually the first thing to, you have to select the object you want to animate. Once you select the object, come to the object section of object tab here. Once you click it, it's going to show you a whole lot of parameters that the object has. And then if you go down to this end, all of these dots that you see here, they are used to record keyframes. All right, they are used to set keyframes for your object. So when you are setting keyframe, you have different parameters to set for. You can set for your location X, location Y, Z, rotation X, Y, Z. You can set even the mode you're looking for the rotation. Then you can also set for your scale. And as long as you have all of these dots, you can set parameter. If you come here, you see, for those that don't have dots, you can't. But for these ones, you can, all these places where you have these dots, you can set keyframe animation for them and it will work. All right. So, so how do we record our keyframe animation? So this is the way I always explain to my students is that you first need to go in time. So the process is you choose a time. Once you're done choosing a time, you prompt Blender that you want to, sorry, you choose a time. That's the first thing you do. Once you choose a time, you go to your object, manipulate it to a set position or rotation or whatever position or state you want the object to be. Once you've set that object, you give a prompt to Blender that I want my object to be recorded. Are you following? I want my object to be recorded. So once I tell Blender I want my object to be recorded, Blender will tell me, what record are you looking for? I will now tell Blender, okay, I want rotational manipulation, or I want the location information to be recorded, or the scalar information to be recorded. So that's the process. So once you're done for that time, again, you move to another time, manipulate your object, and then prompt Blender that I want the object to be recorded, and Blender will ask you, what do you want to record? So that's the first method. So let me just show you what I just said now. So if I move my mouse to this place, and now let's assume that I have moved this object. This is where I want to start from. I've moved it here. So for me to prompt Blender that I want to record this object at this position or at this state, I will hit letter I on my keyboard. Once I hit letter I, I'm going to see this menu pop up. All right. And by the way, I'm using Blender 3.6. Okay. So once I hit letter I, this comes up. Blender is now asking me, what do I want to record in all of this? So these are the options it's giving me to record from. So I want to record the location of this object. So I will choose location. As soon as I click location, you see there's a yellow diamond shape right here, which Blender has recorded, has just showed here that, okay, the object has been recorded and the location has been recorded. And you also see something also different happen to the location XYZ value here. It turns yellow to show that at this time, where my cursor is, my trackbar is, there is a recorded keyframe for the object, for the selected object. If I move my mouse out, it turns green. So what this green means is that there is a recorded keyframe for the selected object, but not at this current time or at some point. But it's just giving you an information that at some point there has been a recorded keyframe for this object, but just not at this current time. All right. So that's what the green color means. But the yellow color means that at this current time, there is this recorded value. All right, please note that. So I want to move this object to this position. Don't forget the first thing you do is move your time first. So let's say I want to move to 1 second, which is 30 frames. And then I'll go to my move. Now manipulate the object to that position. And then once I'm okay at that position, I will prompt the blender by typing I, and then it's telling me what do I want to record. I want to record location still. And as soon as I do that, it record another location here. You also notice that we have value change. And if you come here, and if I play through now, you notice what happens. There is that animation, the object moving from that position to another position. So that is how you record an animation basically. Just that's one way, right? That's one way of recording an animation. So why it is important is that this prompt, Blender would have done a few things for you, would have recorded some unwanted keyframes for you. So in this case, I'll just move this object along my Y, but I recorded X and Z that I didn't move. So this can be like a junk for me, which I really do not need. So, which is why these other buttons are there for us to manually set our records. All right. So, how do we do that? I'm going to undo all of this, my record, so you see what's happening now. So at this point, so instead of me pressing the I, like I said, now the prompt will now change a little bit now. And how the prompt will change is that you don't need to prompt anymore by hitting I. You will do that yourself. So when you do that yourself, there's no need for Blender asking what do you want to record for, because you're already telling Blender I'm recording on this location. All right. So I want to record this at this time for the location Y, because I know I want to move it along Y. I just head over to the Object tab, go to the location Y, click on this, and then it will record that. You notice it is only that Y that now has that yellow. All these ones are now empty. Then I'll go to 30 again, move this there, and then record. And also, there is this third color code, which is here, which is more of orange. So now you're having three. You have yellow, you have green, and then now you're having orange. So you know what yellow means. You know what green means. Now, orange is now telling you that this object has moved from this position, but it's not recorded. So that's what this is. This means if I don't record this and I shift, it's going to jump back to the initial place where it has record. All right. And it goes back to this. So anytime you go to any object and you change the position, what Blender will tell you is that you have changed the position of this object from the initial recorded position at this time, but it has not been recorded yet. All right. So this orange is letting you know that at this time you have changed the position, but you have not recorded it. So you need to now click it in order for it to be stored, meaning it is not stored yet. All right. So if I click this, now it turns yellow, which now means it is now stored. So if I go back and play, more like the same thing like I did earlier, but the only difference is just that I don't have all these many um, things that I have to be putting up with. So that is how you record your an animation. And another thing to note is that not only location that you can record as many um, information you have here as possible, all right? And when you are doing that, I also advise that you take them in layers, all right? Don't try to, if you know that your object will be rotating while it's moving, don't try to do the rotation and movement together. Make sure you do it one by one. Maybe you do the movement first and then go back on top and superimpose the recording of the rotation. So what do I mean? I've already animated this, and then I'll come back to this place. I want to rotate this about the Z axis. So I just come to the Z rotation, record that, and then I'll come to this place right here. So I think this is now the right time to talk about these two keys that I told you nothing happens. Now, because you can already see the diamond shape icon here. This should tell you what it means. So if I click here, it's going to take me to the nearest diamond to the left. And if I click here, next diamond to the right. So if I have as many keyframes, it will just be going to the next keyframe to the right or to the left. All right. So I've recorded. You can see what this green means is that at some point it has been recorded, but on this frame is not recorded. So let's just change this to like 360 degrees. And this means that I've changed it here, but hasn't been recorded. So I'll have to record that. So now I now have two things here. If I play now, not only do I have it moving, I'm also having it rotating as well. All right. So that's how you layer up this animation, like I was saying earlier on. So for you to see all of this animation, let me just change this to like 30 so that it will just go really fast. So for me to see all of these layers of animation that I have here, there is an arrow by the side here. Just drag it out. You're going to see the summary of all of this animation that you see here. But I'm only seeing one diamond because the diamond just the summary. But if I twirl this open and I go to the object that I'm manipulating, you can see that I have the location and I also have the rotation. So if I select the rotation, I can work on this location. And if I select the rotation, I can work on the rotation. If I select this last one being the rotation, I can say maybe I don't want it to start rotating until here, but it should still end the rotation here. So I'll just go to the first rotation key at this point, and maybe I'll just move it at where I want it to start rotation. So you see, it doesn't start until it gets here, but it ends where this ends. So you can play with this and just form as much as you want. All right. So I'm going to stop here because I don't want it to be too long. So, and I'm going to record the next one. So we'll just continue in that series like that. So if you feel this was helpful and you like it, please do share with your friends. And if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe because I do tutorials like this every day. Do have a wonderful day. God bless you. Bye.